Welcome everybody to the March 24th Winnipeg Committee for Safety regular meeting. First, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of Anishinaabe, Innu and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of our Red River Métis, and our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 and Treaty 3 territory. We have, first, I'd like to also acknowledge that we do have one person that will not be showing their camera, but that is here. So we will just, when it comes to voting, we will just make sure that, Rocky, you're loud and you identify yourself so we know that you're voting for something, okay? But your camera should be off for the remainder of the meeting.
That's fine.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna give it off to
We have some motions actually.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. So we'll have to suspend the rules for the participation remotely.
Okay,
Members.
move to suspend.
Do we have a mover?
Okay. All,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
okay, all in favor?
Okay. And then we also have the minutes
Carried.
for, sorry,
Yeah,
September
okay.
23rd and January 26th.
Okay, I move the minutes of the last meeting. Leanne, all in favor? Rocky, can we just identify you?
I'm in favor.
Okay, motion's carried. Perfect. All right, and on to you.
Okay, so we'll deviate from the list of things we have to go through and start off with, we're gonna have a presentation today from Inspector Jennifer McKinnon, who is the commander of the Major Crimes Unit with the Winnipeg Police Service. And she's gonna discuss with us a bit today about the situation with hate crimes in Winnipeg, because that falls under the purview of her department. And so hopefully we'll have some time for some discussion and some questions around that as we move forward with our work on that. So thank you for coming, Inspector McKinnon, and welcome to the Winnipeg Committee for Safety.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to join. I think this is an incredible committee.
Before you get started, I just need to suspend the rules to allow new business. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Motion's carried.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Yes.
Thanks, Rocky. Okay. Sorry,
You'll
sorry,
get us
Inspector,
with the
and I'm sorry, I apologize. Yes,
No problem. So I'm sorry there's a little bit of a miscommunication. I wasn't aware that I was actually presenting today. I thought it was participating to answer questions, but I'm more than happy to give an overview of just what we're seeing. So just a little bit of background. I became the commander of the Major Crimes Division in 2023, which means I oversee various amounts of investigative units within the division that includes homicide, major crimes, property crimes. The list goes on, but most importantly for this committee is in our Major Crimes Division, we house our hate crime investigators. So we have 4 shifts that work 7 days a week from 7 in the morning till 3 in the morning. And amongst those shifts, we have designated hate crimes investigators. So we have 8, as well as 2 hate crime coordinators, which are sergeants that oversee these both shifts. They're embedded in the Major Crimes Unit because it allows us to tap in extra resources depending on some of these investigations and then what they're going to entail. So in 2023, we had increased, when I came into the unit, we had increased the hate crimes response to what I've just explained there. We live in a different world, as we all know, and especially after October 7th of that year, we start to see a climb in hate-motivated investigations. Hate crime charges are very specific charges in the criminal code, but what we often would see would be a criminal code offense of an assault. Maybe it's threats, property damage such as graffiti, which would be mischief. And the motivation behind those crimes would be as a result of a bias towards a community, gender, race, religion, the gamut goes on. And we look at those factors at sentencing. So the charge itself is not a hate crimes charge, but the charge itself would be the criminal code offense of what had occurred. And then through the investigation, we can bring information to the Crown prosecution that the motivation behind the event or occurrence plays into a hate-motivated incident, and that is taken in consideration at sentencing. Winnipeg, in comparison to other cities, we historically show lower in our stats, but I would argue that our biggest barrier in Winnipeg is reporting to the police. There can be significant barriers depending on the victim of these incidents coming forward. So it could be if they're a new resident to Winnipeg and the province, or sorry, not province, the country that they've come from, the police are feared, and reporting to the police could mean, you know, you disappear, you're arrested, or you're taken away from your family. So we have some reporting barriers in regards to trust within the police service. And I think there's also a sense that nothing is going to be done. So we have made some changes in our reporting to allow access to people to report. So most recently, we've opened up our online reporting specifically to hate motivated. We're starting with graffiti right now, and then we're going to be opening it up to some of the other crimes. We do encourage our citizens of Winnipeg, if there's a suspect or it's happening in the moment, 986-6222 is our non-emergency line. And of course, if any safety is at risk, that we ask them to call 911 immediately. In 2023, just to tighten up our reporting and our response to hate crimes, traditionally a call into our communication center would be dispatched to a uniform patrol unit that would come down and meet with a family. This can be problematic because we're asking, again, people who don't trust the police to report an incident, and then have police members coming in uniforms with all their paraphernalia and use of force tools can be intrinsically intimidating for a lot of people. And then also our uniform officers are not investigators. They're at that time we're given a lot of information in regards to what is hate motivated crime. And we didn't want any of these incidents to slip through the cracks. So we changed our policy within our communication center that when these calls come in, as long as their immediate public safety isn't in danger, if it is, a uniform officer would obviously respond immediately in the moment. But we have a duty officer in the comm center that would contact our sergeants directly. Like I said, our sergeants work from 7 in the morning to 3 in the morning, 7 days a week, and they would bring this call to the attention of our hate crime investigators. Those investigators would be able to reach out to the complainant or victim immediately and make arrangements to take reports directly from them in maybe a more suitable environment that is comfortable for the person that is reporting. Sorry, I'm doing this off the cuff, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around this a little bit.
You're doing really good.
I'm really fast.
Yeah. We have seen some marked increases. Like I said, we're not comparable to other provinces because I do think we are underreported here, but we also have to take our demographic into account when different issues are happening around the world. We'll have, since October 7th, clearly the anti-Semitism that we've seen within the city has increased. Majority of it has increased in 2 capacities in regards to graffiti, which you may or may not be familiar with, but we had 2 significant investigations of swastikas being spray painted on locations. One was in the St. James area, where the individual was spray painting a swastika and MKY. Not on any religious areas or structures or community. It was done on fences, hydro boxes, sides of a garage. Is very random in nature. So not necessarily considered a hate crime in the context of the criminal code. However, the motivation behind it, we were able to determine, was hate related. He was marking his graffiti with what was called MKY. MKY is an online neo-Nazi nihilistic extremist group. So when we have something like that, we work with our national security partners. So he was arrested for 22 incidents of mischief with the sentencing is going to be the motivation behind that graffiti. National security took over the investigation and charged him with terrorist offenses. So something as simple as graffiti in Winnipeg is investigated as aggressively as some of our most violent offenses, because now we're seeing this trend of radicalization of our youth online through gaming platforms, which for me, I have a 9-year-old nephew, is extremely concerning because he loves video games. So we are seeing that happening in Winnipeg. Another one that was most recently was a synagogue on Wellington Crescent that had spray painting on the windows. Again, we were, I wouldn't say excited, because we're never excited when something like that happens, but we felt that this was going to be the first time that we were going to be able to lay an actual criminal code hate crime charge, which would be mischief to religious property, being the synagogue. We actually did a public plea to the city of Winnipeg and the residents through the media in regards to if anyone else had experienced any type of damage or graffiti on their locations throughout Winnipeg, realizing that we are underreported, and a lot of people won't report graffiti. It's a nuisance to them. They don't think that the police are going to do anything about it or investigate it. So it was really important to message that to our citizens. And as a result of that, we had a significant number of reports come in online in regards to graffiti. We were able to connect with every single one of those residents and learned that this individual, before he had actually spray painted the synagogue, had attended a number of residence parks, schools within that community, and spray painted not only swastikas, but a bunch of random nonsense. We work very closely with the Crown Prosecutor's Office. They have a hate crime working group within Manitoba Prosecutions, and the Winnipeg Police Service is part of that group. So during that investigation, we connect closely with them in regards to laying charges and our ability to move forward. That gentleman, we laid a significant amount of mischief charges and were able to execute judicial authorizations on cell phones, gaming consoles, tablets, and computers. We are continue at the moment still doing our investigation into those devices, and we'll see if he has any online presence or learn a little bit more about this individual to find the motivation behind this type of offenses. So the other thing that we're seeing in Winnipeg, and I think we see this probably anywhere, is the social media presence of a lot of individuals worldwide, specifically to Winnipeg. I would liken it to keyboard warriors, is how I refer to them. They have anonymous signatures online, but see this as a platform to spew hate towards any individuals or group. They're anonymous, and I find when people are anonymous, the levels of rhetoric and just frightening stuff online is free rein, because they're hiding behind their keyboard. These will get reported to our police service, and they are investigated as aggressively as we would anything else. We also have a special events team that is live to a number of groups and people in Winnipeg that actively will watch some of these sites for concerning comments, behavior, and whatnot. So the climate in Winnipeg here, compared to other cities, I still think we're, although underreported, we're not seeing quite the violence that we are seeing in some other cities, but I really don't know what to comment about that other than we're very live to what's happening, not only in Canada, but here in Manitoba. I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, I've done this off the top of my head, so I'm sure I'm missing a number of things and would be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
No, that was very informative, and I'm sure we probably have some questions. Is there any questions? Because I can start us off if you want. Leanne, go ahead. Yeah.
Thanks, Inspector McKinnon. It's good to see you again. When you mentioned online and the groups that you're looking at, when I've heard, like my understanding of hate crimes, I picture kind of certain groups, but I know because of where I work, I'm a non-First Nation, non-Indigenous person working for a First Nation organization. We see a tremendous amount of anti-Indigenous hate online on our website, but I wasn't sure if that was in the category of kind of this area or if that's treated.
Yeah, well, hate crime, it doesn't exclude any group. It doesn't say one group over another. It doesn't say one religion over another. It doesn't say one person's identity over another, whether they be gender or intimacy related. It's not specific. It's Indigenous hate towards Indigenous online is investigated as it would any other group. It is not a criteria into how we decide that we investigate any matters. I will say though, we can't police social media and online, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Hitch. I just learned about that recently. Like we can't police it. So we rely on it being brought to our attention. We have identifiable groups that will attend protests and demonstrations for simple reason to disrupt and cause issues at those demonstrations. And those are known to our special events team and they'll monitor those, but we rely heavily on information online being reported. So for instance, we had an incident at a pizza restaurant on McPhillips, and somebody started posting a video of their experience with the employees at that pizza restaurant. So the post itself from that person wasn't problematic, but the comments in regards to that incident happening, somebody brought it to our attention. We'll look at the comments. In particular, the first thing is there a threat to the safety of anybody that's involved, whether it's the person taking the video or the people that are the subject of it. Public safety is paramount. And then the challenge is identifying who posted that. Like I said, they're keyboard warriors and they hide behind, they never really put their real name to them, but we do have the means to identify it to an individual. And then we will actually go out and speak to that individual. Depending on what the comments are, often we're going to go out and caution them. And then we refer them to national security as well, just to bring them to their attention should there be further concerning behavior from that individual. If it crosses the line into a criminal code offense, then we will certainly arrest that person for the offense. And another recommendation is for that platform. So we will connect with that platform and have them remove posts from online as well.
Thank you.
So I'd like to, can you talk a little bit about gender-based violence in terms of hate crimes and how that works? Like, is it being looked through the courts? I know we have a former judge that's in our midst out here as well. So is it being looked at as a real hate crime in the courts?
So again, it comes into play. Gender-based violence is a little more challenging because it's hard for me to kind of clarify this one. The motivation has to be specifically to gender, hates women, wants, versus, that's a partner that they're acting out towards the individual versus the gender itself. Hate crimes, is it coming into a factor at sentencing for the courts? I don't have any experience where one's actually been presented at sentencing. So, sorry, I can't answer your question to that one. I think that's much more difficult because gender-based violence, especially to women, is a little harder to drill down in regards to motivation behind it,
Just to that. Oh,
Sure.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
They introduced Bill C-16 in December, which is to incorporate femicide in the Canadian Criminal Code, but we haven't had it passed yet.
Yeah.
So once femicide comes into the criminal code, then you will have a mechanism by which you can use sex or gender. But at the moment, there's no mechanism to kind of shoehorn it in for the police anyway.
That's good news. So that's coming when?
They did introduce the legislation in December and it's still pending.
Okay,
I think it's, from my experience, important to know though that just because a femicide, and I'm not a police officer, but my understanding is just because a femicide offense exists doesn't necessarily mean everything will be there for police or prosecutors to consider what we might be picturing as actual intimate partner violence that is absolutely rooted likely in misogyny and all sorts of things. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there are things there that allow those offenses to be prosecuted as hate crimes necessarily. Whereas what I understand kind of goes into that area is more the actions of groups or individuals that are very focused on women as a gender and as a group. And I don't want to, honestly, I don't want to bring up any of those historical things, but I think we know, like when we see either mass casualty or other events, like that's my understanding of how the criminal code looks at those issues. Whereas although intimate partner violence absolutely disproportionately impacts women, I don't know, and I can see Inspector McKinnon nodding, but so I'll leave it to an expert. But that's kind of what I understand the difference to be. And I don't know, and maybe we can ask Inspector McKinnon what the impact of that femicide piece might be in this, but I wasn't likening it to like aligning more with a hate crime, the impact.
and then
Yeah.
after you, I'll let Rocky know I do see your hand up. We'll get to you after. Okay, go ahead.
I think I'm actually watching like the rest of you in regards to this. Obviously, my division handles the homicide unit, and I reflect. If we're going to take it to that specifically, I reflect back on the women over the last few years that have lost their lives to violence, and there's a whole range. There's partner violence, and then there's a whole other range of deaths as a result of other criminality that may not be related directly to partner violence, right? So I myself am watching to see how this is going to roll out and the impact that this is going to have on us.
Thank you for that. Rocky?
Just an observation that I think I recall one homicide case involving 2 deceased women where I think that it could have been identified as that kind of hate, that kind of femicide. I have an operations question though. Some of the leaders of communities that are complainants are pretty conspicuous in the media and so on. I don't say that by way of criticism, I'm just saying some of them are. In identifying themselves in that way, are they entitled to some further police protection? Are there individuals that you're actually protecting?
Well, if there were, I certainly wouldn't be saying in this forum. However, policing and protection of, say politicians were it not, is at the realm of the government. We are not actively protecting. We do have measures in place for somebody that is a public figure that may have been identified that there's a threat to them. But we don't provide active protection to them, and depending who they are, and if we're going to be talking politicians, that's usually in conversation with their security.
Okay. Any other questions before we go?
I am not really a question, but this could be a bit helpful, Inspector. Our reason for looking at this issue is that we've been asked by a former member of this committee to develop a policy for the city of Winnipeg to address hate crimes. But it's not like I've looked a lot at what other cities are doing about the issue, and there is a lot of different things. I had mentioned to Inspector Rial that a lot of city's just kind of defaulted to the police. It's for them to look after and monitor. But I did find, and I could send you this, the city of Durham in Ontario. Are you familiar with it? They just launched this in January, and it's kind of a three-pronged approach to addressing hate crime. But when you mentioned the fear of reporting and how that is a barrier to understanding how widespread the crime is, they've developed a whole kind of almost a third-party way to report that. They can report it to a victim services group, but it's not the police victim services. It's a city victim services group, which I thought was interesting, and it's probably a little early for them to tell. I have reached out to them and not heard anything back yet, but yeah, they've developed some good materials. I think public education seems really important in addressing this, and so I think our group could play a role there to, maybe instead of saying to the city, just write a policy, maybe, there's other things we could recommend to them or help them to work on. So the group, when we talked about this at our meeting last month, decided the police was the place to start and then look from there what we would do. But we would definitely want to include the police in, in this type of work. So just so you're aware that, maybe now you're going to wish you didn't come to this meeting.
Well, to be honest, I'm only in my role for a couple more weeks, and then I'm taking over for Inspector Helen Peters for the central. So I'm very interested in the community safety piece for my new role. But what I can say, I struggled. Inspector Riel gave me information that you were looking for policy, and I can't stress enough that the criminal code there's really 3 charges. It's advocating genocide, public incitement of hatred, and willful promotion of a hatred. All of them, 3 of them need Attorney General approval before we can lay those charges. So everyone calls it hate crime, but it's hate motivated crime. So the crime is going to be the assault. The crime is going to be the homicide. The crime is going to be the graffiti, the mischief, and it's the motivating factors. And at risk of bringing this up in this table, personally, when we looked at the 4 women that lost their lives, I don't say his name, but Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and Rebecca Contois and Ashley Shingoose, the charge there was second-degree murder for all 4 that they were convicted of. But I believe in something like that in the sentencing. When you look at him and what his impact was online, what his rhetoric was, what his beliefs were, that's hate motivated, right? To a community specifically. So back to our point of if we've ever considered that, but I also think policy is very difficult. This is a police thing, but I would also say I have currently doing training right now this week, the Canadian Race Relation Foundation. I've brought them in. They've been kind enough to come and do training for our service, for both, not only just our police officers, but our civilian members that are public facing or may have contact with the community, in regards to giving them tools and information about this. And there's also a community outreach portion that we're going to follow up with that maybe would be of interest to you in regards to separate and above from the police service, some of the work that they do. I think right now it's a struggle to get this information out to the community. I partner with Ami Kotler from Manitoba Prosecutions, and we are reaching out to different communities represented in Winnipeg in regards to providing training and information and reporting. Inspector Riel has joined us at those meetings and will continue to do that. I did look at Durham in regards to barriers in reporting. I find it very interesting, and I'm also looking forward to see how successful it is. Basically, they are allowing people to call in anonymous information in regards to maybe some hate that they've experienced and want to report it, don't want to report to police and want to remain anonymous. It looks like that's more for information purposes. From the police service standpoint, it's very hard to action anonymous information and actually do something about it. But on the flip side, I'm trying to be open-minded about it, and maybe it will give us a sense of maybe a bigger picture that we're not seeing. So I'm very interested to see how they're going to work with that information, and maybe that's an opportunity there.
Okay, there's a question, go ahead.
Melanie?
Just another thing to note, but there is Bill C9 that's still going through.
Yes.
It just went through second reading, and that would change the criminal code and actually codify hate crimes as offenses that you could actually so some of this too might be we have to wait until it passes, and then what we can do changes drastically based on the new criminal code provisions.
And the outcome of the various appeals that'll certainly follow.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Good, very good points.
But all good steps forward. We're
Totally.
waiting, but we're moving forward, right? I'm always trying to be optimistic.
So I guess even just me in my role as city councilor, so it's really getting it out there to the public to really report. And I know in my own community, I represent a very diverse community. So I know that there's maybe work that I need to do to make sure they're feeling comfortable, and use kind of the community to help get that information out. Cause there's a lot of people that have mistrust, and we got to build that trust up. So.
Yeah, and I've encouraged Chief Bowers. We've opened it up to online for graffiti, but just to test it out. But I would encourage for some of the online activity, unless there's immediate threat to somebody's safety, I would like to see through the service us open up that online, because people are more inclined to go online to report to us versus actually phoning our communication center. So I think from a police service standpoint, that's something that we're looking to do moving forward. But we are always open to, especially with the city, I've done some work with the mayor to bring some attention and awareness. This would be one of those issues. I really think our reach to our community isn't sufficient enough. And we saw that with the synagogue attack. We had no reports of anything other than that synagogue. And we went on the news Monday. This happened on the weekend, went on the news Monday, and just implored people. We don't have to be bystanders to this. We can take a active role in this. And that can be simply if you have something on your garage and you think it's nothing, it doesn't matter. We need to know about it. And as a result of that public awareness, we did get a significant amount of response that led us to an arrest. So, we always look forward to opportunities to work together to try to get some of this messaging out.
How easy is it to get an interpreter? Like if somebody there's a language barrier and they need that extra support, or, English is not their first language, but they could easily do this in a different language. How easy is that to get that?
Not a problem. We do have a very diverse officers within our Winnipeg Police Service. So we have a language bank in-house of a number of officers who speak a number of different languages. So that would be our first go-to. But keeping in mind, even an officer in uniform could be a barrier to someone. So we do have access to the language bank. And bring interpreters. So we do that often. It's not a problem. Just sometimes it's, if it's 2-3 o'clock in the morning, we try to tap into our officers first. But we'll bring in an interpreter and do, again, another barrier could be coming to the headquarters. Police headquarters can be a trigger for various communities for a variety of reasons. And we're very live to that. So we have alternative locations that we can utilize that have been supportive of us to meet with people if that helps them to come forward. And if it means officers not being in their uniform, we can facilitate that as well. We're happy to work with them to make it as comfortable as possible.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for I know that wasn't your presentation, but we thoroughly enjoyed it. So you did an amazing job. So a lot of information that I didn't know. And again, we have such great board staff. They're also giving information that I didn't know. So it's really great learning about something new and getting the conversation going here at our level. So thank you very much for coming to really great.
It honestly was my pleasure. Inspector Riel knows how to, even I'm moving to a new role. I think this is a great committee and I'd be happy to help out. So please, if you need questions or anything, I'm here to help any way I can.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I guess we'll move on to our main agenda items.
So we could proceed that as information or.
And do you want to move that we receive this as information?
Sure.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, I just need to hear Rocky, yeah. Rocky, can you just say aye?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, motion is carried. And now we're on to verbal report. Now, what time is it? We're getting to the end. So I can save mine till another time. So if we can just move that to the next
Lay
meeting.
it over to the.
Lay it over
meeting.
to the
Yeah.
next meeting. Yeah.
So that'll be the May 13th, 2026 meeting.
Yeah.
We'll just need to move it from there.
Okay. Okay, Leanne. Okay, all in favor? Okay, Rocky?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, motion's carried. Okay, now we'll move on to the coordinator's report.
Okay, or I should just ask Aliana or Kevin, do either of you have a report that you want to give?
I don't. Inspector McKinnon more than covered everything from the police side. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
So do I want to just move the police item then right away? We'll move that report in case he has to leave. So, Leanne, do you want to move that again?
Yep.
All in favor? Rocky, I just need to hear you. Aye. I guess I'm not in favor. Aye, Rocky? Oh, no.
I shouldn't yell over my muted.
Oh, okay, you're good. Okay. All right. And then, and also to Ileana, she doesn't report though, right?
yeah, she does.
She does?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a report?
We are currently at the end of the fiscal year, so my team is just trying to get any outstanding funds and outstanding contracts out the door
Yeah, that's fair.
at this time. Yeah, so otherwise, mental health worker program continues to be implemented in collaboration with community mobilization. So to date, 13 community mobilization initiatives have hired their respective mental health workers. So the mental health workers are working with community mobilization participants that are in need of mental health support. So we do have a new Turnabout South coordinator. Her name is Tamil Daly. So she has been overseeing the Turnabout program since the previous Turnabout coordinator has gone on a leave. A mental health worker position has also been hired for Turnabout South. So that coordinator is housed with Gani Ganichak and prioritizes Turnabout referrals. 67 Lighthouses sites continue to offer after-school recreation activities for children and youth. 7 out of 12 communities have approved or finalized their CSWB plans. The final 2 of the initial 7 are presenting their plans to their respective city councils for final approval. Implementation will begin early March in all communities, and then the next 5 communities are also being identified.
And what do you, what do you, are you talking about like SNA and those communities? What communities are you talking?
Oh, no worries. So the communities that are part of, like the first communities that are part of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan includes Brandon, Selkirk, Steinbach, Portage, Dauphin, The Paw, and Swan River.
Oh, I see, the community safety.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
but Winnipeg opted out of.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, okay, that, now I understand.
Yeah.
All right, so,
And Finally, DCSP, so we also fund them. So they have also hired 8 mental health workers that support their frontline team.
Are those gonna be staff just for, people that are experiencing, homelessness or addictions? Are they gonna be going to other locations as well? The eight staff?
That's a good question. I can definitely check in with our analyst that works closely with DCSP. My understanding is that they should be also part of that engagement.
Yeah, no, that's good, because I know that there is definitely a need for that. Like, we don't want police officers or, fire paramedics going to some of those calls when they could be healthcare providers. So that's good to hear that they've provided that funding. So thanks for that.
Yeah, any questions or comments or?
No, I don't see any. All right, does somebody want to move the report?
And we'll just suspend the rules as well to your new business.
Okay, well, first suspend the rules. Leanne suspends the rules. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, the motion's carried, and then move the report. Leanne, okay, all in favor? Motion's carried. I just need to hear you.
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. All right, and now, coordinator's report.
Okay, I just have a few things. Is that document, that strategic plan that I sent you, is it like we were gonna consider it just for information?
To be included as part of your
Yeah,
news report?
okay, so
I can certainly have that.
I was gonna say, cause I've been hanging on to this, and we've mentioned it a couple of times, that the Winnipeg Safe Cities Initiative, completed a strategic plan last November that we worked on with the, Canadian Safer Center for Safer Communities. I know I said that wrong, but so that report, Councillor Gilroy and I are still looking at what we might do with that, and there is no funding in place for the Winnipeg Safe Cities Initiative, so it would have to become the work of the Winnipeg Committee for Safety. If we do something with that. And so I was sort of waiting to see what the Indigenous Relations Department might want to do with that report as well. But I think I'm just going to send it out to all of you to have a look at, and now it will, whatever we have to do to say we've taken that as information, and then we'll have some further discussion about that.
No,
Once you've
we
had a
just have to
chance.
receive it as information, and then we can
Yeah.
dialogue on it, on where we want to proceed, how we want to proceed. But they don't have that to look at right now, right? That's not on.
We will include it with the minutes though.
Yeah.
You'll include it in the minutes? Okay, so then you guys can look at it, gals and guys can look at it afterwards. Okay?
Yeah. Also, Inspector Rial and I, he was helping me set up the presentation with Inspector McKinnon, we talked about the Neighborhood Watch program work that we've been doing. And as we were talking to Inspector McKinnon, I had a thought of when we were talking about graffiti reporting, how that would be an excellent thing to have Neighborhood Watch groups undertake in their communities. And if they were aware of how to do that reporting and where to report it, that would be a large volume of people across the city that would have the ability to report that. So after the Winnipeg Police Service transfers happen, which will kind of be over next month and May by the time new officers are in their roles, Inspector Rial and I would like to then organize an event now that we have the money and get back on track with the Neighborhood Watch groups, look at what they're currently doing and how we can possibly supplement some of their work. And mainly our main focus was just to get them started off with having a way to communicate with each other, which I think we kind of have that almost nailed down now. So I'll work with Brenda in Inspector Rial's office and get that list firmed up, and then we'll be ready for when we can set up a meeting with all of them. So that's something to look forward to. And I had a meeting last week with the coordinator of the Committee for Human Rights, as well as another member of the committee that they're working on a gender-based violence handbook that they would like to put out. And so they're gathering information for that. And since we are already producing the Who Do I Call cards, we have a lot of that information already. So I did share that with them and just wanted to hear more about what they're doing with that, since it would be of interest to our group as well. So we'll see if there's an opportunity to do some work with them on that as they get a little further down the road with it. They haven't developed anything yet. And my last thing is, if you remember last September, we had a get together with other members of other civic committees and had a day to kind of meet with each other and learn about what the other committees do. And the coordinators of those committees, we still meet quarterly. So we have a meeting coming up this Friday with to look at our work with the clerks. And so thankfully you don't have to come, Jade. But
Higher up than this guy.
yeah, but just kind of in recognition that as we as coordinators have talked, each committee is assigned a different clerk, and Jade is our new clerk. We had Jennifer for many years, and just to make sure that we're working in the best way that we can with the clerks, because they're very busy and they have a lot of other things to do just than assist our committees, and just maybe have some more continuity with some of the work that we do with them. So I think that'll be good to hear about and work on some stuff in that regard too. So I'll let you know how that goes as well.
Now it's learning the systems too, because how some of these different committees report is different. The structure is very different. So it's trying to figure out when we hear something from one committee and what the other one's doing. It's hard to figure out if we're doing the right thing and who are we supposed to report to and all that kind of stuff. So it's getting all that kind of straightened out, because there's a lot of confusion. We dismantled a few committees and made them into some bigger. So some are bigger, some are smaller, and we've added some over the years. So it's kind of a bit of a mess for clerks to actually try to figure out. So they're working on figuring out that too. So I think Carlos, the city clerk, will be there trying to help you through all that, eh?
And Andrew.
Yeah. Okay, is that it?
So yeah, that's all I've got, unless anyone has any questions or suggestions. I'll I've been writing furiously while Inspector McKinnon was talking, so I'll write up some notes that I'll send out to everyone about that, and then the people that couldn't make it today will know as well. And then I'll also send, because now I can't remember if I sent it or not, I'll send again the stuff we talked about that the Durham region is doing related to hate crime stuff, because it is pretty good, and I feel like if Inspector McKinnon looked at it, then that's helpful too, if we're on the same page. And then, at our next meeting, maybe we can have some more discussion about what our next steps would be. But I'll suggest some things when I send that information out.
Sounds good. Okay, do you want to move the coordinator's report? Okay, all in favor? Okay, can I just hear an aye?
Yes.
Okay, motion is carried, and then we need to move to adjourn.
We still have one more item.
Oh, yeah,
actually.
one more. Oh, what is
The
it?
coordinator contract.
Oh, okay. Oh, you know what? I think we're not gonna is it just to approve the amount that got voted on at the last meeting?
So it's for the increase, so it will still have to go to council because it's changed your contract. So just an amendment is required for your contract. It requires council approval. So we have the motion that's on the agenda, and that will go to EPC and then to council.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask you to step out while we do this vote, and then we'll call you back in. Right?
And EPC has approved the budget changes. It's just for the
Yeah.
contract to implement it.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, everybody, just to remind you, we had agreed to increase Tracy's salary. And so this is just formalizing it, because we already approved the committee's plan for the year. So this is just formalizing it through, it goes on to EPC and council. So it's just a formalization of what we kind of already decided to do. So can I have somebody move this? Leanne, okay, motion is carried. Any questions? Sorry. Do you have no questions? Okay, motion is carried. Is that
It's Rocky.
Rocky? Can you just say,
I'm for it.
yeah, okay, perfect. All right, and so, let Tracy back in, yeah, okay. And I guess that's that's done for that. So we just need to move adjournment now. Leanne's gonna move adjournment. I am. Okay, all right, thanks, everybody. Okay, that was approved. Sorry, today I was,
Thanks, everybody.